Hi everyone, I'm John Corra, the Marketing Manager for Jarvis Law Office. Today I'm joined by our Chief Vision Officer, Hope Spangler, and we're going to talk about something very important today, the Medicaid Lookback period. So Hope, I just got to ask, there's a lot of uncertainty in the world today, especially when it comes to certain government programs. So why should especially like middle class people, why should they be concerned and paid attention to these Medicaid rules and Medicaid changes?
You know, John, that's a great question, because if you're healthy today, or if you have a decent nest egg, you probably aren't worrying about this. The challenge is most of us need to be, because none of us has a crystal ball about what's going to happen with our health, or if we're married, the health of our spouse. And the reason we need to be concerned with the Medicaid Lookback specifically is because, at least according to the Department of Health, the National Institute of Health, and lots of other agencies that track this stuff, both public and private, the majority of us, and I believe it's more than 70% of us over age 65, will need long-term care. The challenge is, where will we receive that care, and who will pay for it? And so this conversation, we're really going to talk about the who will pay for it portion. And so for most of us, because the cost of care has gone up much faster than inflation, especially since COVID. The reason for that, and I think many of us have noticed it, is that so many people inexplicably still haven't gone back into the workforce that left the workforce. And when you think about who many of the care providers are in different care settings, they're often entry-level, not technically highly skilled types of positions. And so many of those people have been able to find jobs that pay similarly, but without that healthcare aspect, which I think people got really nervous about working in healthcare over the COVID period. So it has affected the cost, because those organizations have had to raise how they pay people in those same positions, as well as just trying to recruit to fill those positions. And then just like us, right? Utilities have gone up. I'm going to say it, the cost of eggs affects, businesses as well, especially if it's a care center and they're trying to feed their residents. So all of us are affected by the increasing cost of things, and that affects long-term care providers as well. And so whether that's home care, independent living, assisted living, or even nursing home care centers, all of those costs for them have gone up exponentially, and thus the cost they need, or the amount they need to charge us when we need that care, is significantly higher than it used to be even a few years ago.
Wow. Hope, great insight as always. I appreciate that. I know you have over 20 years experience in the healthcare field, and even more in the field we work in. So something that we've heard a lot in like the zeitgeist right now is the Medicaid Lookback period, that it might change. Before we get into that though, can you explain like what the Medicaid Lookback period is?
Absolutely. So because of the cost of care, most people who haven't done any, let's say, pre-planning, and we can go into what that's all about later. But if you haven't done any pre-planning and you're needing long-term care, and you go to Medicaid to say, hey, this costs a whole lot more than our monthly income, and if we're going to keep paying this, we're going to go broke, unfortunately. So people inquire as to Medicaid, what their benefits might be. Now, you notice I didn't say Medicare. Most
Right.
people over 65 think Medicare is going to pay for long-term care and are very surprised to find out that while there are certain benefits under Medicare which will help for some of those types of costs, they're usually for a fairly short period of time. So whether it's therapy or even therapy in a nursing home or rehabilitation center setting, the most Medicare will cover is up to 100 days, but most people don't get approved for that long. Oftentimes it's a handful of days, maybe up to 20 or 30. And so very few people get to access the full 100 days because of the criteria they would have to meet in order to do that. So it really then comes down to, well, who pays for long-term care? So we either pay out of pocket. Medicare pays for the tiny period they pay, which isn't long, so we're going to kind of put that off to the side. You might have long-term care insurance, and you might have long-term care insurance that will actually cover the cost. I'll tell you, even working in this field, I haven't seen many policies that have kept up with the cost of care, even with someone's income. And then, of course, you have Medicaid, because that is the agency that has an umbrella of services for older adults to help with the cost of long-term care. And that program was put into place so that people had care available to them because Medicare and private insurance, health insurance, doesn't cover long-term care.
Interesting.
So you asked me about the look back, John, and I'm finally going to get there. So when you apply for benefits under the Medicaid program, Medicaid looks back over the past 5 years.
Oh, fine. Oh, okay.
And so that's the look back currently to see if you've changed how you hold any of your assets. If you have given things away, and we're talking more than normal or historical birthday and Christmas gifts, or more than a modest tithing amount that you have historically done over a significant period of time, if you give away any more than that, Medicaid's going to say you gifted your assets. Now, while that's legal, and the IRS even has rules around the value of what you can gift, Medicaid says, oh no, if you give away your assets, they're going to assume you were doing it. If it falls within that 5-year look back, they're going to assume you were doing it with the intention of hiding those assets from Medicaid, of artificially impoverishing yourself. And if you do that, Medicaid says, okay, there's a consequence or a penalty. And that is a period of time where they won't pay for someone's care. And that can be really catastrophic, especially depending on what the rules are in the state that you live in.
Hope, I want to talk more about the look back period in just a moment.
Absolutely.
But we've been talking about the cost of care. I think maybe, and I'm ignorant of this until I started working for Jarvis Law Office. What is the average cost right now for care in Ohio?
Absolutely. So the average cost for in-home care, that varies a little around the state. As a general rule, it is running probably about $34 to upwards of $45 per hour. A short time ago, that was $20 to $24 per hour. The other change that has occurred is you used to be able to purchase that caregiver time in blocks of 2 hours or more. Now many agencies, because they have limited staffing, have minimum requirements that are 4-hour or more blocks of time, which then makes it harder to cover those really, the times of day when someone needs the most care. So early in the day to get things started off, and then towards the end of the day as things are winding down and someone might need help with dressing, maybe meal preparation, bathing, which usually occur at either the morning window or the evening window. If you need help with both of those, you may then need to purchase 2 blocks of time, which means at that amount per hour, home care can get really expensive very, very quickly, much more so than it used to be. The challenge is most of us would prefer to receive care at home. And so the cost of that really makes staying home a much greater challenge than it used to be. With independent living, that really varies greatly what the cost will be, and it's usually quoted as a per day or a per month cost. I'm going to do it on a per month cost. So depending on how nice the care center is and depending on where it's located, at least here in Ohio, the general cost of independent living usually ranges from $2,000 on the low end, and that would be quite low, to upwards of probably $8,000 a month. Again, this is an apartment with some services like cleaning, laundry, 1 meal usually, but often as many as 3 meals. And then you can add on additional services. Many activities come included with that, and oftentimes transportation or transportation services like a bus or a van. Great option, especially if someone is more active, really prefers socialization. These are often hotel or resort-like in the general nature of things. And then there's assisted living. So if someone needs more help getting through the day, or maybe needs an environment, a safe environment, if they're having challenges with something like dementia, Alzheimer's, the impact of a stroke. Assisted living is a wonderful environment that is also more home-like than a nursing home. They can provide many services, not the more skilled services that you could receive in a nursing home environment, but very good option for many people. The average cost of assisted living, at least here in Ohio, ranges on the low end from about $3,000 a month to upwards of $15,000 a month, depending on the center. And some of them are fantastic, but others have higher cost because they have more specialized training for their staff or focus on specific types of issues like Alzheimer's or other types of things that they might even have constructed the building in a way to help with the overall care and living for someone who is dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia. And then on, kind of as we're getting further along in that spectrum of care, we have the nursing home. Here in Ohio, the average cost ranges from about $8,500 on the low end to upwards of $12,000 to $14,000 a month per month. So if you start multiplying that times 12 months in a year, you can see very quickly how someone can exhaust their assets in just a short period of time, which is why we do have to be concerned with Medicaid. Whether you're single, where Medicaid forces you to spend down everything you have, or if you're married and the amount they allow your spouse to keep is maybe more modest than you might assume. So keeping track of that look back, incredibly important.
So if it's $10,000 a month, that's $120,000 a year. Over 5 years, we're looking at $600,000.
Absolutely.
I don't know about you. I don't have that money set aside for care. So it's Medicaid that would come in, but we talked about this look back period. We know it's 5 years right now, but the rumor is, or it's likely to change. Is that correct?
We don't know. And so what we're going to use, or at least I've been trying to educate myself about, is Has the, look back always been 5 years? And it hasn't. The last time the look back changed was actually in 2006. And that was a result of the Deficit Reduction Act of 2005. So in 2005, Congress and the Senate put together and approved a new budget and then put it in front of George W. Bush, I believe, to sign into law to allow a reduction in the deficit. So even though that's not exactly what's happening right now, we have this massive reduction in costs that needs to happen across Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security in order for us to meet the reductions that need to happen over the next 6 to 12 months. And so as we're looking at what needs to happen, they'll probably use some of the same tools that they used to meet the budget reductions in 2005 and 6. So they lengthened the look back period from 3 years to 5 at that point in time. We didn't have much notice when they did that. So I looked it up. President Bush signed the new law into effect in November, and then it went into effect on February 6th of the following year. So just 3 months later.
So almost 20 years ago.
Almost exactly 20 years ago.
Put that in perspective, we have a member of our staff on our marketing team. He was 4 when that happened. Now he's a full-grown college adult who works for us. But that means, so 2004, we were in business back then, correct?
Yes, we were.
So
and
you were working here.
I was working here.
20 years ago, but
John.
what was it like back then? What can we expect if it happens too?
Oh my goodness. I still remember that time frame. I remember us working 12 to 14 hour days in those 3 months from when the president signed the Deficit Reduction Act into law until the new law was implemented, so that people could protect their assets and get that planning done under the prior 3-year look back before the 5-year look back went into effect on February 6th of 2006. And so if the look back is what they do decide to change, based on history, we can probably expect the look back to change again. And boy, there are lots of numbers being thrown around. Yeah. I've heard 7. Actually, they almost passed a 7-year look back a handful of years ago. And it got so close, some of the caseworkers at Job and Family Services or Medicaid were actually trained that the look back was increasing at that point in time. The bill didn't get passed as it was at that stage, but it was that close. So many of us who remember that time frame expect that we'll see at least an increase to a 7-year look back. Again, my crystal ball is on the fritz, so I can't guarantee it. And goodness knows, I don't want to see an increase in the look back at all, because it is going to impact the number of people who can actually qualify or become eligible for Medicaid. And the reason for that is most of us can't predict what our health is going to be like 5 years in the future, let alone 7 years, or some of the other numbers that have gotten thrown around for potential new look back period, 8, 10, or even 12 years. Do you know what your health is going to be like that far in the future? The reason that is so important, and I'm just going to use myself as an example. I'm in a blended family. We have 5 children. All of our children are out of college now. Some of them are married, some of them are not married yet. We have one grandchild and one on the way. We also have one child that's been through a divorce and then remarried. When these types of things happen, we as parents or even grandparents often help our family member with these types of things, including setting aside money for college. I can remember in that 2005-2006 timeframe, we had a client come to us whose husband had had a stroke, something entirely unpredictable. And we were trying to get him qualified for Medicaid. And it was a horrible situation for the wife to be in. And one of the challenges we were trying to deal with is that just a year and a half before that, they had paid for part of their daughter's college for dentistry school, right? She had the opportunity to go to school to become a dentist. As grandparents, they wanted to help her do that, get established without having huge student loans. So they helped contribute to paying for her school. And then a year and a half later, her husband has a massive stroke. He needs round-the-clock care that she couldn't provide herself. And they didn't plan to reduce their assets because they thought he was going to need care. That was a shock, but these kinds of things happen. And so the challenge is, because they did contribute that money, Medicaid said, hey, that means we're not going to pay for his care for a period of time, even after they spent through a large portion of their assets, which is actually why they were here to see us at that point in time, because they had already met with Medicaid and been told that.
Hope, you and I went to the Buckeye Hills Regional Council a few months ago.
Yes.
Spoke to them, great group of folks. They're the area agency on aging for that part of Ohio. But they were even talking then about so many Medicaid policies going into place, programs getting cut, and a lot of their people that they work with were struggling. So I think it's probably safe to say changes are coming, and the look back period, more likely than not, will change. But what can people watching this video, what can they do now to protect themselves?
So I think that people should take action. We don't know what is going to happen in the future. What we can tell from family, friends, other people that we know that are aging is that things do tend to happen with your health as you get older. I wish it was true that the majority of people were healthy and then just passed away in their sleep. I think that would be fantastic. I would love that option. Having worked here at the elder law firm for the last 21 years and for the 14 years before that in long-term care, that isn't what happens the majority of the time. We often, especially because we're older before we pass away, right? We're living longer. It also means we often have more health issues later in life, because while they keep us going and keep us alive, which is great, I want to be here with my family for as long as I can be, but I will probably need some help as I get older. I'm 59 and I turned 60 at the end of the year. So these are things that, thanks, but it's true. So these are things that have to be on my radar, especially if they implement a look back that is 10 or 12 years. Can you imagine I'm supposed to guess what my health is going to be like 10 or 12 years ahead of time? Now I'm hoping they only increase it to 7. I just don't think that they're going to leave it where it is. The reason I think that is because if they make other changes, and they probably will make other changes here and there, but if they basically just cut the program, from the research I did, there are 830,000 people living in nursing homes today with Medicaid paying the majority of their bill. Now that care is not free. Each of those people has to contribute their income towards their cost of care, and then Medicaid makes up the difference. So someone who's accessing Medicaid is still paying. Don't think that they're getting free care, because they're not. But it does mean that if under the new budget, they just say, hey, we're not going to pay for that care anymore, that would mean that 830,000 people would be displaced from nursing homes, because the nursing homes, they can't afford to provide that care without being fairly compensated. They're providing a great service. And so if that many people is displaced, where do they go?
Back home or nowhere?
If they stop covering those 830,000 people in nursing homes today, and let's say half of them had to sell their home, they have nowhere to go back to.
And if they're single, they probably don't have kids.
Well, they may or they may not, but the other part of that is they're in the nursing home because they need care. Are all of those families going to be able to either provide that care themselves 24/7? Remember, they're in a nursing home which offers care up to the point of skilled care, so hands-on nursing services. Odds are they need a significant amount of help. Are their children, if in your scenario their children take them in, going to be able to provide that care 24/7? And the answer to that is simply probably not for very long, and definitely not without affecting those kids' ability to earn a living themselves. Because in this economy, who can afford to quit their job if they're working now?
Mm-hmm.
And so it brings up a lot of other questions. We can't force nursing home residents to be homeless. I mean, how would they need care, they need safety. Some of these things then become very difficult to think about what would happen to nearly 1 million people.
Wow. It's wild to think about.
It is.
But we don't just do this for fun, right?
Absolutely.
We don't look up depressing statistics all day, but we work in this field. So we know that there's ways that we can help. But what should someone do if they're watching this and they want to take that next step?
Absolutely, John. So the reason I've been here for 21 years, and especially having worked in long-term care for more than a decade prior to that, is because I love being part of making a difference for families. Part of what we do at Jarvis Law is we help protect assets. We help protect families. And we help families and individuals maintain their dignity. So I know that there are different thoughts on whether or not someone should do that. Having been through this both ways with family members, where I watched a family member lose absolutely everything they had, and then on the other side, have been able to see family members not be stripped of their dignity and be able to preserve some of what they had. In my family, both sets of those individuals worked incredibly hard for what they had. And so to see them have to lose it because something happened to their health, it really just impacts you. And so with our other family member who needed care, we were able to help them protect their assets so they didn't lose everything. And that's the important part. No one wants to go broke. And we've probably all heard that phrase. You know, if you go to the nursing home, you go broke. And it's not the nursing home's fault, right? They're providing a good service. It's just the cost being what it is, it really takes a toll on a family financially. especially if there's a spouse at home, right? If you're cutting in half the income, or maybe even cutting the income for that spouse who's remaining at home, even more than that, that has a huge impact on their quality of life. So when we're doing this type of planning to protect assets, it's not just so the family can leave something to their children, but I don't know, I feel if someone wants to do that and they work their entire lives to set aside a nest egg, I think they're the ones who should decide what happens to that nest egg. And if they have a spouse, should their spouse be impoverished because something happened with their health? I don't think that's fair either. So I feel really good about bringing equity to families in allowing them to make the decision on how much of their care they pay for and being able to preserve a good portion of their assets. And I feel even better about it when, there's emotion wrapped around it, which there often is with our families.
Oh, definitely.
Have incredible stories. And, sometimes it's about the family farm or the, wooded piece of land that, someone worked 2 or 3 jobs for decades in order to be able to purchase that and have it be kind of that gathering place for their families. But sometimes it's just someone works incredibly hard and does all the right things, right? We're all told to save and put away, and then something happens to our health, and then we're told we have to spend it all down. I don't know. I feel great about giving people the choice to protect their assets, as much of their assets as they want, if we have 5 years or more today. And so if someone has 5 years or more under the current 5-year look back, we can pretty much protect everything that they have. And then it's their choice how much of their care they pay for, but they get to draw a line in the sand and say, I want to pay for this length of time. Some people choose to access Medicaid earlier on. Others choose to pay for a portion of their time until it feels like it's too much. But as you suggested, John, at $120,000 a year, just as an average ballpark for a nursing home, after a couple of years, someone might start to feel differently about paying for that out of pocket. And we can give those families choice and control over whether or not that spend down continues to go on or whether or not they can preserve a portion of that. And it's also really important to me, having worked in long-term care, I know that Medicaid doesn't pay for everything. And so there are times when a family member, a child, has to reach into their pocket to cover things that will benefit their parent because there isn't anything left because their parent went through a full spend down. But now the child is paying for things that will make mom or dad's life more comfortable or help with their health or overall outlook. Medicaid doesn't cover everything, and some things they only cover every so many years. And if there are changes in the budget, I don't even know if Medicaid will keep covering as many things as they do today. And even today, what they cover often falls short. I don't want to burden my children with having to pay for things that I need later in life. So us being able to help set aside a portion of the assets means that those monies are there to cover things that their parent could need without it having to be a financial burden on the child. And many of our clients tell us that's one of the reasons that they do this planning, because they want things to be smooth and easy for their spouse and their children, and they don't want to be a burden of any type, whether that's financial or with having their kids need to provide direct care and really throw their lives into turmoil by them not being able to continue in their careers.
So we've covered a lot today, and it's a lot to think about for everyone.
Yeah.
and it may seem overwhelming. But would you be okay if we offered everyone watching a free consultation with our firm?
Absolutely.
I think it's a great idea. We'll put a link in the description of the video. And if you click on that, you will be able to schedule a free 15-minute consultation
Absolutely.
with one of our specialists, intake specialists, and they will really just help you determine like your goals and wishes and set you up for the next step in our process if we find that you're a good fit.
Absolutely. And so we don't want to waste people's time. So we do have a couple of wonderful people on our intake team, and they can help determine if we can help someone. From there, they would talk with someone like me, or even possibly me, because I'm in one of those roles, that right after intake, we have what's called a client navigator, and that's my role with the firm. And we can really help families understand what options are available, and based on their specific circumstances, what's going on in their family, we can help them understand what's possible. And then if they want to move on and talk to the attorney, they can do that. But those first 2 meetings, there's absolutely no cost for. And so it is a great way for someone to figure out what their options are without really taking on any risk in doing so. Just, a little bit of your time.
15 minutes is all it takes.
15 minutes for the intake call. And then if you're sitting down with the client navigator, we set aside 90. Sometimes we need that much time, other times we don't. But we want to be sure that we can answer questions and really have a good conversation with you.
Wonderful. Well, I do appreciate your time today. If you're watching this and you want more information, we have links in the video description, but check us out online, jarvisfirm.com. And if you want to just reach out to us directly, you can contact us via email, wecare@jarvisfirm.com. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Click the link below to secure your free consultation now. For more information, reach out to us at wecare@jarvisfirm.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe.